He is bishop, I guess. I say I guess because recently had his title changed to bishop. He was called into the ministry at the age of 8 in Atlanta, Georgia, licensed to preach at 13, ordained at 17, and traveled the country as an evangelist. Later, he went to prison, and while in prison, he studied himself, he says, people, and God. And in 2016, he organized the Yes We Can Worship Center, uh, and he feeds a catered meal to the unhoused every Friday night at 7 p.m., along with the word. Bishop Sherman Manning, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dominique,
Thanks for
and good
coming
morning.
on. Yes, good morning. And I know you always have a million things going on. You're a pastor, a bishop, but also an activist. Is that a fair description?
Absolutely, and I normally like to be there. Couldn't get there today, but I agree with you. This has been a tough week for progressives in America, including the fact that the Supreme Court, the MAGA-ish Supreme Court, made a ruling regarding the homeless that the governor seems to support, but Mayor Karen Bass does not support.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that the governor took that position. Of course, you're talking about the Supreme Court ruling in Grants Pass, Oregon, where they're saying that cities and towns, and I guess that applies to states and counties, have the right to make being homeless illegal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've criminalized poverty, and I was surprised also that Gavin Newsom, who is normally pretty progressive, thought it was a good ruling, and not surprised that Mayor Karen Bass thought it was a terrible ruling. And I concur with her assessment.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this. Explain, kind of how we came to this because there's always this push and pull. And if you live in LA, you know this, but I guess it's the same issue in a lot of cities and towns is that businesses, and public safety officials and many time neighborhood residents do not want encampments in front of schools or anywhere in some cases in front of businesses. And so, like in some places, like in the city of Los Angeles, we created policies where allegedly you have to have you have to have an alternative for an unsheltered person if you tell them to move along. You can't just arrest them without an alternative. And it seems that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that what this Supreme Court ruling does is it says it's not cruel and unusual punishment to arrest someone for being unhoused, even if they have nowhere to go and you're not offering an alternative. Um, does that sound like how you understand the ruling?
Yes, yes, and I read the entire ruling, and that is exactly what they're saying. And you're correct. I mean, I think if I have an encampment in front of your house and they offer me housing, and I refuse that housing and decide that I'd prefer to stay in your front yard, then citing me uh, is not cruel and unusual in my humble opinion. But if they're saying if there's an encampment anywhere, even if it's in a park, and there is no housing available and there is no alternative, that person can still be cited and therefore criminalized, which, in my opinion, is cruel and unusual. And Ms. Bass has said the same thing.
I mean, because you spent a night or two unhoused yourself, and
Right,
I'm trying to figure out what people are meant to do if there's nowhere to go.
right.
And what are you supposed to do? Sleep standing up or not sleep at all? Just stay awake until you. Because if you stay awake forever, if you stay awake indefinitely, you'll die. I mean, it's literally
There you go.
people understand that you can die from sleep deprivation. So what are we saying? Are jails the new homeless shelters? Like what in a practical logistical way? What does this ruling mean?
Right, right. Yeah, I think that jail is going to become the new shelter. I'm old enough to remember. You're probably not. Back in the day when Jesse Jackson could still say it, and he would say that for many poor people, jail is a step up. He said once they're in jail, they'll have 3 meals. Once they're in jail, they have a hot cot, and so forth and so on. And so people were actually getting arrested. And there's still that now. I know people who will commit a crime just so they will have somewhere to stay. There are guys who are not really criminals, but they prefer jail over these tough, mean streets. And believe you me, the streets are tough. And what doesn't get talked about a lot is the area that, I spent a lot of time in, which is Skid Row. And I read recently, and I think I mentioned it to you on one of your shows, that the Skid Row area has been ranked as one of the most dangerous areas, most violent areas in the United States of America. The deaths, the killings, the stealings, the women who are sexually assaulted there is just unspeakable. I was talking with a woman 2 days ago who just broke down and started weeping about the fact that she was sexually assaulted in her tent. And according to her, when she called the police, they didn't do anything because they didn't feel like she was, her accusations were worthy of being investigated. So it's a dangerous thing also. And I think that we are going to see more people who choose jail over the streets. And this Supreme Court ruling only exacerbates that problem.
But if you're talking about LA County, jail is not necessarily a safe alternative. I mean,
absolutely
we've
not.
got big problems with our
most
jails.
Dangerous
Yeah.
jail system in the,
yeah.
I think the most dangerous jail system in the world is LA County. This is true. On another note, Dominique, if I may, and you know that my policy is to never criticize Mayor Karen Bass, and that policy has not changed. I think her heart is absolutely in the right place, and I saw some numbers recently where homelessness supposedly decreased slightly in the city of LA, and hopefully that can be contributed or attributed to her Inside Safe program. I do want to say that recently, famous architect Norberto Nardi and that's Norberto, last name is Nardi, he designed the 60-story Olympic Tower in downtown LA, and he's known throughout the world. He's building an entire city in Mexico, but he's based here in Los Angeles. So we've come together, and we are building a tiny homes project. We're raising our own money, private contributions, and as a backdrop, I want to say that when you and I talked about this on the last show, when the mayor gave her State of the City speech, one of the things she asked, she said, we want private businesses to help us, and I paraphrase, house the homeless.
She sure did.
Against that, yes. Okay, so I hope Mayor Bass is listening. So against that backdrop, I decided to embark upon a tiny homes project, and I said, well, as I always tell you, I don't take government funding, I don't take city funding, I don't take any money from any government organizations. So Norberto and I decided we would raise our own money, and so now we're in a position where he's going to design the tiny homes projects himself. We're going to buy the property ourselves, and we're ready to go. We're ready to do it, and we can't get a call back from any city councilman or anyone from the mayor's office regarding zoning, because there are some zoning things that you have to work around. Also, when she became mayor, she said that she was declaring a state of emergency to cut through some of the red tape. Well, you're talking with Dominique, a preacher who has put calls in for the last 6 weeks with only one question. We have 10 or 15 properties in your area, city councilman, and we call 5 or 6 city councilmen. We simply want to know, are these areas zoned for tiny homes? Because we're going to get some of your homeless people off the streets in your area, and we need to know about, well, I'll get someone to call you back. So I haven't gotten a single call. The only place that we've been able to get welcome with open arms is Bellflower, California. And so it seems like our first project is going to have to be in Bellflower rather than in my hometown and the town that I love so well, Los Angeles, because we can't get through the red tape. Not money, Dominique, not asking for any assistance whatsoever. One question, is this area zoned for tiny homes? So I'm quite frustrated with that. And I think that sort of flies in the face of logic when we have our wonderful mayor asking private business sectors and pastors and churches to come together and help her deal with this crisis.
Yep,
because this is an emergency.
It is an emergency, Bishop Sherman Manning. I got questions about that process, and also want to go a little deeper on the count of unhoused people. Reportedly 10% down in the city of LA, which would be significant if true, and 5% down in the county year over year. So let's talk about that and more. You're invited in 800-920-1580. We are KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
This is 30-second Chevy Spring Into Adventure Radio, produced for Carol H. Williams Agency by Radio Bob Resort on July 1st, 2020. Grab the keys, short, July 24, 30. ISKI code GC SV0009000.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
Summer's greatest hits are going on now, and Macy's July 4th sale has summer's greatest savings, like 20 to 60% off warm weather styles to refresh your look. Shop amazing limited time specials like swim and cover-ups for your next beach day, 50% off. And sandals from On 34th, Tommy Hilfiger, and more, 30 to 40% off. Going on now at Macy's. Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase, except gift cards, services, and fees. Savings off already reduced prices, exclusions apply.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now. So I'm talking with Bishop Sherman Manning, who is obviously a pastor, Yes We Can Worship Center, but also very dedicated to the issue of the unhoused. And we started out looking at the Supreme Court's recent decision in Grants Pass, where a small town in Oregon took their case all the way to the Supreme Court to state that they could outlaw camping anywhere in their city, in a park, anywhere, even if they do not have any option to offer those unhoused folks. Like, you're under arrest if you sleep somewhere, but we don't have a shelter, we don't have a bed, and the Supreme Court agreed with that. That's the ruling that they made, and I think the dissent was pretty powerful. I think it was Sonia Sotomayor once again who says in her dissent that sleep is a biological need, not a crime, which I thought was a very clear rebuttal to that. But Governor Gavin Newsom, who we typically think of as progressive or at least liberal, has cheered that ruling. He said in advance this is how he wanted them to rule because he claims that this puts it back in the hands of the states and cities and makes it very clear what the rules are so that each local area can make their own decisions. He also said something about California. Maybe I should quote him rather than paraphrasing because I was a little distressed. Basically, he's saying that we'll continue to provide resources and a humanitarian approach. Here it is. California remains committed to respecting the dignity and fundamental human needs of all people, and the state will continue to work with compassion to provide individuals experiencing homelessness with the resources they need to better their lives, blah, blah, blah. Basically, though, he's supporting the criminalization of houselessness. My takeaway when our governor, who's quite smart and, experienced with these issues, a former mayor of San Francisco, when he takes these positions, I always just think that it has something to do with running for president. But I'm saying that to be clear now. You Pastor Manning, you said in response to the mayor's call for private sector and others to provide housing that you came up with this tiny housing project with your friend the architect, and that so far no city council districts have been responsive. You haven't been able to get any questions answered around zoning. Wouldn't you go to the zoning department, or is it that you're going directly to the city council because they you have the relationships there and they can expedite the process?
Well, yes. To your second question, that's precisely correct. And to your first question, we've done both. So Norberto's team has reached out to the zoning departments. I mean, this is what they do. They design and they build and they know the ropes. It's just that the city has not been. And again, this is not a criticism of Mayor Bass. This is on the city council, as far as I'm concerned, and those people in the zoning departments, et cetera, have not been responsive. Bellflower was the opposite. We got a meeting with the city planner immediately. We got a meeting with zoning departments. They're welcoming everything because this is not just a tiny homes project. We're doing holistic housing, as I call it, meaning that the people who are there are not just going to be housed. They're going to be in programs to help them prevent from falling into homelessness again. They're going to be in programs to treat their PTSD. I coined the phrase post-traumatic street disorder. They're going to be in programs to teach them job skills and so forth. Bellflower has been, and I'm not trying to promote Bellflower, I'm just being candid. They've welcomed us with open arms, and I believe that if Mayor Karen Bass actually was informed about what we are attempting to do and the fact that we have our own private money, she would probably be responsive also. So I've been very, very, quite frankly, frustrated with the lack of response, and I don't want to call any city council persons out by name, although I normally do. I won't do it today, but they haven't been responsive.
Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm assuming Bellflower has 42 unhoused people. I mean, it's a tiny city.
Correct.
So you may solve their entire problem. I mean, in any case. But there is also some backlash against the tiny homes concept in general, and obviously you don't feel that way because you're starting a project. But, I've heard it criticized as being problematic for a number of reasons, not the least of which it seems to be a symbolic expression of the predatory capitalism on steroids that we're currently engaged in when regular, most people get regular houses, but if you're unhoused, you have to have a micro home. That said, if it was me, I think I'd rather have a micro home than no home. But you want to address those kinds of concerns?
Of course. Not one statue has ever been erected to a critic. I'm on the ground every day in the streets, not the suites. And normally those who offer this kind of criticism have either never encountered or dealt with or certainly dined with a homeless person and have not been homeless themselves. When it is 11 o'clock at night and you are a woman and you are sleeping in a tent on Skid Row, in spite of all that the governor says he's doing, in spite of all that the mayor says she's doing, in spite of all that Bishop Manning says he's doing, you would much rather have shelter over your head, whether it is a tiny home, a half home, or a quarter of a home, than to sleep on the streets. So I take the criticism as malarkey. Tiny homes are much better, much better. I was on Skid Row last night at midnight. I saw children, Dominique, children, 7 and 8 years old, with their mothers camped out on the side of the road. I mean, when I see stuff like this, I almost want to take them to my house. So I just don't even entertain that kind of criticism. Again, if we're doing it with private sector money, asking and not asking the city for a dime, I think if I am a city official, I'd rather have a tiny home project that is protected, where the people in the program are in programs,
right? I mean,
not just in housing.
Right, and you're not asking for money, and you already have the land. But I'm reading this article in Vox, and it says that the growth of tiny houses has been held back considerably because there's just nowhere to put them, due to minimum house size zoning regulations, bans on camping on otherwise unoccupied land, or the driveway parking space of an existing house. Even the most tiny house-friendly zoning code in the world wouldn't necessarily render tiny houses viable. We've only got 30 seconds till news, traffic, and sports. What's your response when you read that? When you hear me read it, I should say.
Yeah, again, tiny homes are better than no homes, and a tiny home is better than a tent any day of the week.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk more about, the count here, and I want to hear your suggestions at this crossroads that we're at between the count and the Supreme Court ruling and the polling that I'm seeing in the DA's race. We could be in for some trouble here in Los Angeles with the unsheltered. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Jamaica is bracing for Hurricane Beryl. The National Hurricane Center's latest update predicts the storm will pass over or near the island nation later today. The storm is currently a Category 4 with maximum sustained winds of 145 miles an hour. Beryl has already claimed at least 7 lives after devastating Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Black leaders in the U.S. are commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. The landmark Civil Rights Bill was signed into law July 2, 1964. It outlawed discrimination based on race, sex, and religion and dismantled Jim Crow laws. Tuesday, Vice President Kamala Harris posted the leaders of the civil rights movement carried the baton, and now they have passed that baton on to us. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. Robert Half is here to help. Their recruiting professionals utilize their award-winning AI to connect businesses with highly skilled talent. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers have agreed to give Bronny James something that most second-round picks in the NBA draft don't get: a fully guaranteed contract. Terms of Bronny's contract have not been released, but whatever final terms are negotiated, LeBron's son will have a guaranteed deal. The guarantee means Bronny will not be signed to a two-way contract, which limits the dollar amount and the number of games for an NBA rookie. The guarantee also means that Bronny, the number 55 pick in the draft, will have one of the Lakers' 15 roster spots. Bronny and first-round pick Dalton Knecht will play for the Lakers rookie team in the 3-day California Classic in San Francisco beginning Saturday. Bronny and Knecht will also play in the Las Vegas Summer League, which starts July 12th. The Dodgers scored 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs for a comeback win over Arizona. The Angels lost by 2 at Oakland last night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses, like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys. Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys?
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment, 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are talking with Pastor Sherman Manning and you, 800-920-1580. You got something to say? Love to hear it. Pastor Manning, Bishop Manning, of course, over the Yes We Can Worship Center. And against the backdrop of where we are right now with the Supreme Court basically saying that it's illegal to be unsheltered, our governor agreeing with that, even though he's vowing to take care of the unhoused, something we haven't successfully done as a state. The news that the latest count of the unhoused reflected a 10% drop in the city of Los Angeles and a 5% in the county. It's the first time in many years that it's even reflected a leveling off as opposed to a spike. I think, especially with county and city side by side, it seems like the programs, some of the programs are starting to work. That Karen Bass's commitment to this and naming it an emergency seems to be helping. That the county and city working better together is making improvements. But there's also the side of which we know these counts are not 100% accurate. Still, that's a pretty sizable drop. What was your reaction when you heard it, and how do you unpack it in terms of the veracity of what those numbers are telling us?
Well, because I have participated in several homeless counts myself, I think the numbers lack any credibility or veracity, and I think it also depends on what you're reading. If you check your emails, Dominique, I sent you 2 articles yesterday. And one of the articles I sent to your email reflects a different set of numbers. And one of the articles is talking about the governor having spent $24 billion in the last 5 years, and much of that money can be accounted for. Don't want to be redundant, but on your last show that I was on, I went back to look to see what the subject was. I talked to you about the fact that a lot of the money is being wasted.
Yeah.
Well, this article that I sent to your email reiterates that. And it indicates that last week, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass celebrated a 2.2% overall decline in homelessness because of her Inside Safe program. And back to the criticism, if you will, of the Tiny Homes Project, I think that any area that is zoned for a jail should definitely be zoned for a tiny home, because in jails and in prisons, we have these what's called 2-men cells. And you put 2 human beings in a jail cell together, and that's legal, and that's logical, and that's supposed to be okay. But we can't put 2 people in a tiny homes project together. Square footage-wise, the tiny home is actually going to be larger. When you look at the hotel project that the mayor has, and again, I'm not a critic. I think you have to do everything that works, anything and everything. That's my approach. But her Inside Safe program costs $17,009 per individual per month. That's over $200,000 a year to house one homeless person in a hotel. Again, if I'm on Skid Row, I'd rather be in the hotel than to be on the streets. I'd rather be on a tiny home. But I mean, pragmatically.
And to be fair, that cost should also factor in some supportive services as well, right? Even though we know they're not at the level we'd like them to be at.
Right. Well, I mean, Dominic, as far as I'm concerned, let's say the supportive services are $7,000, still $10,000 a month to house a person. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how big your house is, but that's more than 3 times my mortgage. But the point is.
Yeah, but when did you buy your house?
Right. She's doing something.
Yeah.
And she's doing a lot more than your good friend Mr. Garcetti was doing, and at least she's offering a whole lot more than rhetoric. But I think we have to have an all-hands-on-deck approach. But back to your original question, the homeless count, I don't believe those numbers any more than I believe I got a bridge I can sell you a couple of blocks down the street. I have participated in those counts as recently as a few years ago, and I just don't believe them. I believe that the mayor is doing a great job. I believe that what she's doing is effective, not as fast as she'd like, not as fast as I'd like, not as effective as either of us would like. But I do believe that these city councilmen and the city government ought to be ashamed of themselves for not being responsive to either just tell us, this is not zoned for that, or it is. We can't get an answer, and it is absolutely frustrating.
That is bizarre. I mean, you'd think they would at least tell you no, or you have to do the following, or consider a different site,
right,
rather than no response at all. And of course, the article you're referring to, I looked at, I saw something similar in the Washington Examiner, which is a right-wing rag, but this is from the Independent, where it's talking about the governor being confronted at a news conference about the lack of auditing, the lack of transparency in the spending, and really money that's not accounted for, billions of dollars not accounted for in the state of California in the Unhoused Persons Program. Now, you know, and we did talk about this last time, and I think I said to you that for years I've heard these complaints from unhoused people who call into this show, who called into the front page when I was on that show, that there's a lack of transparency. At the same time, we're talking about and I don't think this is to make excuses for the governor or the mayor, but you're talking about a massive emergency where things were mobilized in a way that I don't think, at least initially with HH and HHH, really understood the depth and width of this problem, this challenge, which continued to grow, and hasn't had the proper, checks and balances really on it.
Well, mentioning running for president, I think Mr. Newsom, if and when he runs, he's going to have to give an account for this kind. I mean, how do you not account for $24 billion? I get your point. It is an emergency, but that's not an excuse. I said to you before, I think both the governor and the mayor should have a homelessness czar, and one of the things they ought to do is make sure that this money is I mean, how do you not account for $24 billion?
Yeah,
I mean, somebody ought to be in jail.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd have to see the audits before I'd say whether someone should be in jail, but definitely there's got to be accountability for that, and especially if that money, if it's been spent and it's showing up somewhere and it's just not accounted for, that's one thing. But if it's been skimmed off or wasted at a time when people are literally dying on the streets every day, you're right, someone should be in jail.
Well, certainly. I mean, I hope it's just being wasted rather than someone stealing it. But I will say to you that with the money that has been thrown at homelessness in the state of California, we still are the homelessness capital of the world. We got a third of all the homeless people in the country right here in California. Obviously, we need to, when what you're doing is not working, you got to try something else.
No doubt. But I mean, Pastor Manning, you also have to take in it, like I just pointed out to you, the Washington Examiner. Now, I wouldn't like to see that money stolen.
I read this in some progressive papers also.
Right. I know. I'm not saying it's not true, but this is where I'm going with this. Is that number one? Okay. Obviously, I'd rather see. I wouldn't rather see it wasted or stolen. I'd rather figure out if if it was sloppy tracking, that would be okay, but not great. But if people are stealing or wasting it, that has to be reeled in immediately. But what we're getting, the Fox Newses of the world is California is spending money and it's being wasted. And what does that end up doing? It ends up leading to the defunding of programs for the unhoused because people say, well, they're just wasting the money anyway, and or it's not making a difference.
Right. Well, I don't want to see defunding, but I do want to see refunding for the money that has been wasted and the money. And certainly I don't support anything Fox News says, but I am a realist and I am a pragmatist, and I'm saying to you that I just have to say it, whether my progressive brethren concur with me or not. With all the money that we have spent, we don't have a money problem in Los Angeles. If you want me to be quite frank with you, we have a management problem. Some of these people don't know what they are doing, and it's sad, and people are dying on the streets every day while we write more checks and while we mismanage the money. And this has nothing to do with Fox News or we should shut down programs. We don't need to shut down programs. We need to more effectively manage the programs that we have.
Manage and monitor, manage and monitor.
Manage and there you go. I'm going to steal that from you. Manage and monitor. The M&Ms of housing. That is what we need to do. Manage and monitor. And if I may throw in a shout out, one of a Jewish lawyer, Craig Ackerman, Ackermann. When I went to him and told him about the Tiny Homes Project, his firm immediately offered to write a check to help get at least one homeless person off the streets. That's about $22,000. So there are people, some of our Jewish brothers and blacks, who are willing to work together, put our monies together, put our minds together and our talents together to try to help ameliorate the problem that we have in Los Angeles and in surrounding areas. I said to you before, and I'll say again, I'm not sure that we will ever effectively eradicate homelessness in Los Angeles unless we have a sea change, because we keep throwing money, we keep throwing words, we keep throwing rhetoric, and the city council, again, I'm not going to call any names, most of these people that I have spoken with and some of whom I've worked with really are not serious, I'm going to put it lightly, are not serious about getting people off the streets. There's a lot of people who've become very wealthy, so-called addressing this homeless problem, filthy, minded fat cat developers and a lot of other people who have just prostituted this issue.
Yeah, we're talking with Pastor Bishop Sherman Manning, and he obviously does a lot of work around the unhoused. Again, I'm going to say, whenever I hear people talking about throwing money at the problem, usually that comes with a conservative agenda, and I know that's not what you're trying to promote, but I feel like we have to be clear that as we've thrown money, the problem has continued to increase. California has the biggest homeless problem in the country, but it's also one of the most populous states. So we have to, yes, monitor and manage, but we also have to resist just a reactionary kind of analysis that includes cutting programs and funding for the unhoused. Because in a sense, I think you do have to throw money at the problem. We'll see what what Bishop Manning has to say about that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Help prevent gun violence tragedies. Gun violence restraining orders can help to prevent individuals at risk of harming themselves or others by removing their guns for 21 days up to 5 years. Learn more about how to petition for a GVRO and the role of GVROs in safeguarding communities by visiting lacountygvro.org or by calling 1-833-540-0473. GVROs can save lives.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take Auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Talking with Bishop Sherman Manning of the Yes We Can Worship Center. He feeds the Unhoused every Friday night, along with the services there. And Bishop Manning has been talking about his quest for this tiny homes project, which is not taking any money. We got into the waste, lack of monitoring in the state of California, the missing $24 billion, if you will. Pastor Bishop Manning, they're talking a lot in the chat, and some interesting points come up. Morris Phillips says it sounds like we need a homeless inspector general. Paul Lee says bingo. Courtney Edwards says another reason we need reparations. Now we can decide for ourselves. Urban Birds and Bees says there's this issue of the unhoused for sure, and then there's the issue of many of us are one paycheck away from being unhoused. I think that's also true. Want to talk about abusing funds? Check out the Inglewood Unified School District. That's Morris Phillips. They always have it going on in the chat. You can get in at youtube.com, KBLA 1580. Any responses to what I'm sharing with you from YouTube, Bishop?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those are very valid points that your listeners and viewers are making in the chats. And I just wanted to push back against something that you and I were discussing earlier. You know, you and I always we have a fun debate spirit, and we're on the same page.
For sure.
But back to the progressive conservative thing, Dominic. I mean, I am in no, when it comes to these guys like Sean Hannity, who I debated many years ago when he was actually a local DJ in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I don't have a lot of respect for. We had fun. I think I was 19 years old, so I wasn't polished then. I'm not that polished now. I'm still rough around the edges. But we debated until he was red in the face. I was actually in the studio with this guy. So I don't have much respect for Sean, and I don't have much respect for a lot of things that come out of the conservative camp. But at the end of the day, when you're in the streets every day talking to homeless people, many of these people, I know their full names, I know their life stories, and then you hear that $250 million has been directed toward solving this problem. It just becomes frustrating. And you do ask yourself, where is this money going to? And I'm saying to any city councilman in Los Angeles and to our great mayor, whom I respect very much, Mayor Karen Bass, we have to do something. If this is really a state of emergency, then zoning should not be an issue. If it's 1,000 feet away from a school or a park, it should be all hands on deck. We've got the Tiny Homes Project that Norberto Nardi and I are doing is not going to solve the problem, but it's going to help the problem. And we need, if churches want to get involved and use some of their property, if businessmen want to get involved and use some of their property, all of us are going to have to work together as a symphony if we're actually going to deal with homelessness in this city, or we're going to find ourselves next year in the same position. The homelessness count is going to go up a little bit, and then we're going to say it didn't quite work, and then a couple of years from now, it'll look like it went down. But at the end of the day, go to Skid Row. At the end of the day, I can take you to any area in Los Angeles and show you that it pretty much, Dominique, unfortunately, looks the same way this year that it did last year. And finally, when these homeless encampments where I see them taking people's stuff down, I've actually been there and monitored them while they were doing it. And they destroy people's property. They destroy their medications. They do all kinds of things. And lots of times, officials will say that we have housing for all of these people, and 2 days later, I'll see those same people 4 or 5 blocks away from the last encampment. And you know, what exactly happened in every case, I don't know. Sometimes maybe they refuse housing. I'm not sure. But obviously what we're doing is not quite addressing the problem. And I agree, we do need more programs. We probably need more money. But this money needs to be monitored. It needs to be managed. And if I could make any suggestion to the mayor, get a homelessness czar, get someone who this is all they do. They walk and talk homelessness so that we can effectively do what the mayor is trying to do, because she's got more than one thing to do. She's not just over homelessness. She's over city government. So one woman can't do all of this. One official can't do all of this. She's going to need some help. And I want to say to the mayor that we are trying to help. And anybody who wants to volunteer to help us build the Tiny Homes Project, things of that nature, we need you to go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. That's yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Yep. We do need volunteers. We're going to be working with some community colleges I have a couple of psychologists who are going to be helping us out. I want to shout out to Dr. Carrie Glass and to just many, many others. But we're going to have to do this together. It can't be the mayor and the mayor alone. We can't put that kind of responsibility on her. She walked into a mess, and it's going to take a while and a lot of effort to weave our way out of that mess.
Yeah, well, I mean, two things. I mean, whether the statistics are up or down, the fact that people are dying on the streets of LA every day means that the situation is not acceptable. Point of clarity, the 2.2 number that you're talking about was LAHSA's overall homeless persons count. What does that mean? Everyone that they consider homeless. The 10% number and 5% numbers that I cited, those are LAHSA's counts of unsheltered homeless, meaning people that are not in any kind of temporary housing or anything like that. So I think that's where the discrepancy between your numbers and my numbers come in. It's part of the same study, but to your point, we got to be all hands on deck. You said, they need to get more serious about zoning, about monitoring and managing. What else is urgent? What else needs to be changed or done, in your opinion?
Well, because we're almost out of time, we're going to talk about it the next time. But the next time, let's talk about LAHSA and what I know about LAHSA also. But if you don't mind, again, Dominique, ask anybody who wants to really volunteer to help us to go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. And one of the things they need to do is maybe you need to host some kind of forum. You know, the way Tavis used to do the state of the nation or what have you. Maybe you need to do a forum on the state of homelessness and bring in some of these city council persons, bring in some of the people who are on the streets like me, and let's discuss this over the radio.
Always here for that. I'm always here for KBLA Talk 1580, using our bully pulpit to help in any way we can, especially when it comes to getting folks off the streets. Yeah, we didn't have time to deep down into it, but it looks like we're headed towards a much more conservative DA if the fundraising records hold up. So all the more reason to get serious about how we can help the homeless rather than jailing folks. Bishop Sherman Manning, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
News, traffic, and sports, then your phone calls on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Jamaica is bracing for Hurricane Beryl. The National Hurricane Center's latest update predicts the storm will pass over or near the island nation later today. The storm is currently a Category 4 with maximum sustained winds of 145 miles an hour. Beryl has already claimed at least 7 lives after devastating Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Black leaders in the U.S. are commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. The landmark Civil Rights Bill was signed into law July 2, 1964. It outlawed discrimination based on race, sex, and religion and dismantled Jim Crow laws. Tuesday, Vice President Kamala Harris posted the leaders of the civil rights movement carried the baton, and now they have passed that baton on to us. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BIN News.